Hello, welcome to Lesson 14, made by the American Institute of Techniques and Management. In this lesson, we'll be doing a summary regarding functions. In this summary, I will be taking you on a journey about making sure that the order of operators are correct in your functions, viewing and fixing formulas, referencing cells and using names, setting the calculation mode using conditional formatting, and data validation. Maybe we'll talk a bit about writing your own functions, but we'll see. So first off, you have the operator procedure. One of the most important factors when writing formulas is to get the operators correct. So to see that, let's open the Excel file. Yeah, I have one open, so why not? Okay, so we are here. There's an error with the second one, but it doesn't matter. So we are here. Let's name this file as on desktop as lesson 14. Save it. And we go to the formulas tab. Here we have the insert function. Great, I'll be talking a bit about it, so don't worry, we don't have to do anything for now, just listen and try to understand. If you don't understand at the first time, you can always go back and re-listen. Okay, so one of the most important factors when writing formulas is to get the operators correct. And I do not mean telephone company operators. This has to do with mathematical operators. You know, little details such as plus signs and multiplication signs and where the parentheses go. Operator procedure, the order in which operations are performed, can make a big difference in the result. You have an easy way to keep your operator procedure in order. Just remember, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Thus, parentheses have the first highest precedence and subtraction has the last precedence. Well, to be honest, multiplication has the same precedence as deviation and addition has the same precedence as subtraction. But just numbering them this way works perfectly for your memory. So you would just lose remember the first letters, P, E, M, D, A, S. That's basically it. So, for example, the formula, which I will type in for you, equals 1 plus 2 times 15 equals 31. If you think it should equal 45, you better go visit your aunt. Well, the answer equals 45 if you include parentheses such as this. Getting the order of the operators correct is critical to the well-being of your worksheet. Excel generates an error when the numbers of open and closed parentheses do not match. But if you meant to add two numbers before the multiplication, Excel will not know that you simply left the parentheses out. A few minutes of refreshing your memory on operator order can save you a lot of headaches down the road. So let's go over displaying the formulas. In case you haven't noticed, it's kind of hard to view your formulas without accidentally editing them. That's because anytime you are in edit mode and the active cell has a formula, the formula may incorporate the address of any other cell you click. So basically, if you put in a sum button and use this number or this area, you have a proper formula. But when you edit this formula, by mistake you may click somewhere that you don't really want. So if you were like here and you were editing the formula by adding something, you might by mistake just click it somewhere or by mistake simply destroy the entire formula. So wouldn't it be easy if you could just look at your formulas? Well, there's a way. It's quite simple. Click File at the top of left of Excel worksheet, then click on the Options button. Next off, you go click on the Advanced tab and scroll down to the Display options for this worksheet. Again, you have the display options and you have the display options for this worksheet. And notice the show formulas in cell instead of their calculated result checkbox. Here you have it. This box tells Excel that for any cells that have formulas to display the formula itself instead of the calculated result. To return to normal view, repeat these steps to uncheck this option. So let's check it and see what happens. So basically you don't see the answer here, you only see the entire function, and just to undo it, let's go over all the steps we took. Advanced, going down to the display option and display options for this workbook or this worksheet depending on where you clicked. So show the formulas and click OK, and again you see the proper number. So you can accidentally edit functions even when you have select the view formula option. Be careful clicking around the worksheet. This is basically what we're saying. So let's go through fixing some formulas. Suppose your worksheet has some errors. Well, don't panic. It happens to even the savviest users. And Excel can help figure out what's going wrong. On the Formulas tab in the Formula Auditing section in the Error Checking button, click the button displays the Error Checking dialog box. So let's go to the Formula tab, in which we are right here, and check out the Error Checking button, which is over here. So that is, the dialog box appears if your worksheet has any errors. Well, otherwise it won't. So the error check is complete. Otherwise, it just pops up a message that error check is complete, and it's well, that's more. When there are errors, let's maybe try to do something. Equals 0 divided by 0, probably the most common error, and error check. And here we have the error checking window. When there are errors, the dialog box appears and sticks around while you work on each error. The next and previous buttons let you cycle through all the errors before the dialog box closes. For each error, it finds you choose what action you take. Help on this error. This leads to help system and displays the topic for the particular type of error. So let's go over it and see what happens. Yeah, basically we go to the Microsoft Excel help. So here we have the correct a division by 0 error article. Microsoft Excel, let's click on it because that's what we're interested in, because this was only the search engine for the error itself, and here when you click in it you have the more sophisticated answer for your question, and this works actually every time. Okay, let's close it now. Next off, you have the show calculation steps. The Evaluate Formula dialog box opens, and you can watch step by step how the formula is calculated. This lets you identify the particular step that caused the error. So to view this error, let's maybe make this way more interesting. we will still have the error, but right now we have many steps. So let's go over it, show calculation steps. So basically it tells us right here that there's only one error, and the answer over here, this is the calculation before the zeros, and this just underlines the error. We can use the evaluate button. The evaluate formula dialog box lets you show step by step what happens. So basically, by clicking this button, you see every step by step. So basically, we can see that first we have the 1, then we have 1 divided by 2, then we have 0.5 times 3, then we have 1 plus 1.5, then we have 2.5 plus 63, then we have 65.5 minus 3, and then we have the rest. This is obviously totally wrong. Well, you have to remember your which math equation is first and which is last. But never mind this. This is what the show calculation steps do. Next up, you have the ignore error. Maybe Excel is wrong, so let's just ignore it. And then you have the edit in formula bar. This is a quick way to just fix the formula yourself if you don't need any other help. The error checking dialog box also has an options button. Clicking the button opens the formulas tab from the Excel options dialog box. In the formulas tab, you can select setting and rules for how errors are recognized and triggered. So let's go over this. And I want to remind you of something very important I told you before, but we'll go over this really quick once more. So the absolute references. If you're going to use the same formulas for a bunch of cells, such as those going down a column, the best method is to write the formula once and then drag it down to the other cells by using the fill handle. So as you remember, we have, let's say, a formula of adding 2 cells, and by grabbing this formula, you remember that these are the cells that we're actually adding right now. By grabbing the formula down, you will notice that the data is actually going down. So it's actually adding these cells one to another. And by using the absolute reference, you can avoid this. So the problem is that when you drag the formula to new locations, any relative references change. Often this is the intention when there is one column of data and an adjacent column of formulas. Typically, each cell is the formula column, refers to its neighbor in the data column. But if the formulas all reference as a cell that is not adjacent, usually the intention is for the formula cells to reference an unchanging cell reference. Get this to work correctly by using an absolute reference to the cell. To use an absolute reference to a cell, use the $sign before the row number, before the column letter, or before both. Do this when you write the formula, the first formula, before dragging it to other cells, or you will have to update all the formulas. So basically what I'm saying is, by writing in the $sign, as you remember, you use the absolute reference, and just to show you the difference, when you grab it and drag and drop and go over it, you can see that by using the absolute reference, the first cell didn't change, but because I didn't use it on the other ones, it does change. So basically, this is how it works. This way, all the formulas references, no matter where you copy them, instead of the reference turning into a different one, and so on. Next off, you have the turning on and off the calculation. So the Excel default is to calculate your formulas automatically as they are entered or when you change the worksheet. In some situations, you may want to set the calculation to manual. Leaving the setting on automatic is usually not an issue, but if you are working on a hefty workbook with lots of calculations, you may need to rethink this one. Imagine this. You have a cell that innocently does nothing but displays the date. But then there are dozens of calculations through the workbook that reference the cell. Then there are dozens more calculations that reference the first batch of cells that reference the cell with data. Get the picture? In a complex workbook, there could be a lot of calculations going on, and the time that this takes can be noticeable. Turning the calculation setting to manual lets you decide when to calculate. Do this in Excel Options dialog box. So again, you go to the File, Options, and here you have the Formula tab, and here you can set the workbook calculation from automatic to manual. Let's leave this as checked, click OK. And from now on, when you press F9, the calculations will be done by hand. Here are some further options you can use. F9 calculates formulas that have changed since the last calculation in all open workbooks. Shift F9 calculates formulas that have changed since the last calculations just in the active worksheet. Ctrl Alt F9 calculates all formulas in all open workbooks, regardless of when they were all last calculated. Next off, let's use the named areas. You remember we talked a bit about this, so well, maybe it's just me, but I think it is easier to remember a word such as a customer or inventory or December than it is to remember A24 E29 or whatever. So I create names for the ranges I know I'll reference in my formulas and functions. Naming areas is easy to do, and in fact you can do it in a few ways. The first is to use the new name dialog box. You can get to this by clicking the define name button on the formulas tab. So let's go to the formulas tab. You search for the define name button, and here you have the name of the button. Let's say customers. You remember we went over this. This is just a reminder of the most important functions for you to work with. You can do a comment, click OK. And as you remember, we can go back to the customer name anytime we want. And this is probably the easiest and fastest way of going to the named area. Next off, you have the formula auditing. There are precedents and dependents. There are, well, external references. There is interaction everywhere. How can you track where the formula references are coming from and going to? Well, use the formula auditing tools. That's basically how you do it. On the formulas tab in the formula auditing section, so you have the formula auditing. In this section are various buttons that control the visibility of auditing trace arrows. The formula auditing toolbar has a number of features for wading through your formulas. Besides showing tracking arrows, it also can check errors, evaluate formulas, check for invalid data, and add comments to worksheet. So basically, that's how it works. I'll mark something for you that has a track reference. This one would be perfect. And you can see by clicking this will actually tell you what it does. It marks this area and adds it to the result over here. And here you have the sum, and also you have a sum over here of the area. Let's trace precedence over here and see what will happen. So see, this basically shows you arrows of the areas that are used in the function. Also, remember to use conditional formatting. Conditional formatting can be very useful for any Excel functions. So just like the if function, which I told you a lot about, because as I said, this is the most important function in Excel. Just like the if function returns a certain value when the first argument condition is true and another value when it's false, conditional formatting lets you apply a certain format to a cell when a condition is true. On the Home tab, you have the conditional formatting, the styles section in a drop-down with many conditional formatting options. I've mentioned this in the previous lessons, but using the conditional formatting also works as the if function. For example, you could specify the cell to be displayed in bold italic when the value it contains is greater than 100. Conditions are set as rules. The rules types are formal all cells based on their values. Format only cells that contain. Format only top or bottom ranked values. Format only values that are above or below average. Format only unique or duplicate values. Use a formula to determine which cells to format. When the condition is true, formatting can control the following: borders, font setting, and fill. Cells can also be formatted with color schemes or icon images placed in the cells. Okay,